take this opportunity to go in deeper with an active user of this software, my good friend, Professor Johan Van Goethem, who is a professor of medical imaging at the University of Antwerpen, I should say, the editor-in-chief of Neuroradiology, and he is going to talk to us about the benefits and clinical value of the features that CoLumbo software supports for him. So I'm now going to stop sharing my screen, Johan, and I'm going to give it to you to start sharing.
Thank you very much, Larry, for this introduction. So it's my time to welcome everybody. A good evening for those of you who are in Asia or in Europe, and a good afternoon for the people in the US. And I'll start sharing my screen also. And that should do it. These are my disclosures. So I am in the medical advisory board of SmartSoft, who is actually producing this software, CoLumbo. So as Dr. Tannenbaum explained, CoLumbo is an AI product that looks at your lumbar spine MRs. There are different ways to implement the system, but in our hospital, it is implemented in the work stream, meaning that the results of this software come back automatically without any interaction by the user automatically in our PACS. And so what does this software do? It's an AI assisting radiologist. It will save you time, and I will explain in a second why it will save you time. V1 means version 1. Let me get a different laser pointer that will be easier to see maybe. So we are talking about version 1 of the software. Version 2 is out or is coming out this year and will give you more time savings. And version 3 is planned for later. This software also will be very accurate. We'll look at the accuracy of the software in segmenting the images and making a diagnosis. For the time being, version 1 will look at 7 L-spine findings, and we'll see those in detail also. And it will generate an automatic report. And for me, I'm working in Belgium, this report will be in Dutch. As Larry explained, very important also to me is the consistency of this software, eliminating bias and giving a standardization to the reports of different radiologists in your group. So again, we're talking about version 1 today, and version 2 will come out soon, I think during the summer this year in my hospital. In version 1, there will be a time saving for those radiologists that do measurements. Some people measure the area of the thecal sac. Some people will measure angles of scoliosis for triple heights. For people that do a lot of measurements, there will be definitely a time saving. For people that are not used in reporting lumbar spine, like young residents or people that are on call and normally do another subspecialization and don't see so many spine MRs, there will be definitely an increased accuracy in their reports. And again, the third most important thing the software will do, and which is for me very important in my hospital, is standardization. Version 2 of the software, again, coming out soon, will give you more time savings because it will be more accurate and it will detect more pathologists, and it will also increase the accuracy. And this will apply to all radiologists, even if you're a more experienced radiologist and you're used to looking at lumbar spines. Of course, this product is cleared. It has both an FDA clearance and a CE clearance to be used in the US and in Europe. So what does the software actually do? Well, it looks at your axial and your sagittal T2 weighted images, and it will segment the tissues. It will segment the vertebral body and disc, the vertebral arch, so the bones and the facet joints. It will also look at the yellow ligament. It will look at the thecal sac, any disc herniation or disc bulging that might be present, and you can also see in magenta, the nerve roots will also be segmented. Out of this segmentation, there will be many measurements that are provided by the software, and I will highlight some of them. It will measure the size of a disc herniation, which is something I usually don't do. I will say if a disc herniation is a protrusion or an extrusion, but if the software measures the herniation size, it will give you, again, more standardization and consistency between reports between different radiologists. It will also locate the disc herniation, so it might be central, a subarticular, foraminal, all that will be done by the software. The size of migration, up or down, will be done by the software. It will look at nerve root impingement, and it will look at the area of the dural sac and stenosis of the central spinal canal. It will also, of course, measure the heights of the vertebral bodies, anterior, middle, posterior, and it will measure the intervertebral spaces. What pathology is then detected by the software? Again, disc bulging and disc herniation, and it will make a difference between both. And Larry explained that you can actually choose for your own group what is the exact difference between a bulging and a herniation. By definition, it should be 3 millimeters, but if your group prefers the range to be until 6 millimeters, you can choose that in the settings of the software. It will look again at nerve root impingement, dural sac compression, central spinal stenosis, and spondylolisthesis. Now, how accurate is this software? There's accuracy of segmentation and accuracy of measurements. If you look at accuracy of segmentation, for example, it does very well in segmenting the disc and segmenting the vertebral body with a 97% accuracy, and also the dural sac. It also has a good accuracy, but a little bit less in segmenting the nerve roots and any herniated disc material. Measurements are also fairly accurate. For example, the mean error in measuring the dural sac area is about 14 square millimeters, and the error in measuring an angle like a lordotic angle is about 2 to 3 degrees. Now, how does this help radiologists? This is a busy table, I know, but look at the two first columns. The first column is looking at the radiologist that is using the software, and the second column is looking at the radiologist that doesn't use the software. And then it's looking at different pathologies and looking at the accuracy of that radiologist. And this is determined by a specialist who looks at the images afterwards. And the specialist has plenty of time looking at the images and making a gold standard, while this radiologist is just doing his daily reporting. If the radiologist uses the software, you see that accuracy, for example, determining a central spinal stenosis or a spondylolisthesis is fairly high. But if a radiologist doesn't use the software, in all of these entities, in all of these pathologies, the accuracy will be lower, and it will be significantly lower, for example, measuring lordotic angles, or, for example, measuring a central spinal stenosis. Again, the measuring thing is quite important, and that's where the software will bring you much benefit. This is the difference in agreement rate between the radiologist using the software and not using the software, but all of these values are actually significant. Let's say you use the product on its own without intervening of a radiologist. How does it do? Well, it determines the level of your image fairly good at the 90%, 99% accuracy. So if there's a transitional vertebra, for example, and the significant findings, if you look at sensitivity and specificity, for this herniation, it's fairly specific, but its sensitivity is a little bit lower. It does very well on nerve root impingement and dural sac compression, and also on central spinal stenosis. That's just the product on its own. There have been several peer-reviewed publications on the software. I just mentioned two. This is one on the robustness and the potential for L-spine radiology transformation if you use this study. And the conclusion was that it provides a high diagnostic accuracy for labeling and detecting clinically relevant degenerative changes. And this is another study, also peer-reviewed, that was published in 2023, saying that the introduction into practice of this software, which is called CoLumbo, would precisely predict the presence of stenosis and thus decrease the observer variability in assessing lumbar spinal stenosis. Again, we stress the same thing, it will bring standardization in your reports. I'll give you some examples from my hospital. On the left, you see the original image, and that is what we will see in your packs. You will have one series, which is the original one, and you will have one series which is annotated or segmented. So you can actually check if the segmentation is done correctly, and it will provide a report. I translated our report in English because, again, our report is in Dutch. So the report for this level, for example, will say symmetric disc bulging 3 millimeters. It measured the disc as 3.1, mild central spinal canal stenosis, narrowed spinal canal, and it measured the spinal canal as being 9 millimeters. Another example, a herniated disc at the L4-5 level. And notice when you look at the annotated sagittal images, it will show those levels which are seen on the axial images in either white when there's no pathology, or red when there is pathology, and in gray when there are no axial images provided for that level. So that's an easy check for you to know which axial images were sent to the software. In this case, it will make a report that says there is a central disc protrusion. You know that central is everything which is central, and some people will call paramedian, because next level is subarticular. But it's interesting, it also will measure 17% dural sac compression and compression of the L5 nerve root and deviation of the right L5 nerve root. Another example in a fracture, and that's very useful to have. It will measure all of these vertebrae. It will say there is 8 millimeters height loss, but you get these measurements. You can make a report however you see fit. You can use a report that is made by CoLumbo, or you can change it with your own words in your own speech recognition. And the last example, where it says there is an anterolisthesis, I would call this grade 1, but the software will help even more and will say this is a 17% anterolisthesis. There is positive feedback from clients who have been using this software for some time now, which I'm sure the company can provide you if you are interested in. And finally, I want to say what the development roadmap is. Again, version 1 is available today. Version 2 will be available, or is available today. And pathologies that will be detected in version 2 or 3 and which are not already in version 1 also will include scoliosis, foraminal stenosis, modic changes, something I was really missing up to today, sequestration of disc herniations, Schmerl nodes, osteophytes, fractures, hypertrophic ligaments, epidural lipomatosis, and degenerative disc disease. And that ends my presentation, and I will stop sharing my screen, and I'll give the